direct conversation, some deep reactions, please. All this comics narration ain't late me. A little more talk, a lot less read. A little fight, baby, is what I need. Close the trade, open up your brains. Explain it to me. Explain it to me, baby. Explain it to me.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome once again to Rhett Conversations. My name is Josh Wasta, aka Fallout Fieri, and with me, okay, I'm gonna pause real quick because I try to match up the introduction of my co-host to things that fit the book, and this one was difficult until I remembered that I'd been holding an introduction in my back pocket for a while, and so now it's time to bust it out. So don't bother trying to analyze these rhymes. In this ep, she'll say fuck 93 times. It's Leia Cameron. Because there is nothing for this book other than the insanest of clown posses.
I was going to say, is that a fucking ICP lyric? Like, first of all, wow. Second of all, how do I know that? Why do I know that that's an ICP lyric? Holy shit.
Fuck your mom. Fuck your mom's mama.
Yeah, all right. I will allow that during the time that album came out and was popular, I, like everybody else of a certain age, was legally required to listen to that album.
It's true. Especially if you were still, especially if you're still angry at your parents.
Yeah.
Because this was like, this album was the precursor to like new metal really hitting in the early 2000s.
Kind of, yeah. It was very popular among a certain subset of gamers, and
yes, indeed, yes. And if you were LARPing, you could not get away from ICP.
No, and that was also during the time that me and my boyfriend at the time were in a Denny's, and somebody punched him in the face and yelled "Clown Love" and ran out, and then they started a Juggalo task force in Schaumburg. So that's a whole story. That's a whole story for another podcast. But
oh my god, that's fantastic!
Yeah. That, to my knowledge, the Juggalo task force I think still operates in Schaumburg today, so it's a real problem.
Wow. All right. In fact, ICP was like proto Linkin Park. Like Linkin Park was still hybrid theory at that point. Anyway. Joining us today for Ultimatum, the end of the Ultimate Universe, is Mr. Jesse.
Place.
Yeah, that's right. Mr. Jesse Letourneau. Jesse, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. A few things up top. First of all, this is the trilogy of books Marvel should have just said we're done with, but
it's true.
I've got to serve that. I've had friends comment of a pastor being on a podcast with swearing, and you guys just right out of the gate. And last but not least, should I be worried that we spent 3 minutes on the insane clown posse? Are we avoiding this story? That
yes,
we aren't avoiding it. We aren't avoiding it so much as we're getting into the right mindset for what we're about to experience.
Okay, fair.
Because I also want to point out before we show up that this was out of the mind of Joseph Loeb, who I personally have a love-hate relationship with. The man did Batman Hush, The Long Halloween, Spider-Man Blue, some of my the beginning of Superman, Batman, some of my favorite
Batman
shit.
White.
Yeah, he wrote Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like,
My stages of grief over the loss of Captain America.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, he's can be a fantastic writer, and then they give him this. Yeah.
I mean, incest is the least weird thing in this world.
It's true. Yeah.
I mean,
No, this is famously the world where there was not even like a hint that Wanda and Pietro were fucking. They were just fucking.
Yeah. Oh God, I always block that out of my memory because I'm like, no, that's non-canon. I don't care.
Yeah. Black Widow is gone like halfway through the Ultimate series because she is a Russian spy and she does sleep with Tony Stark and releases the sex tape in an effort to like undermine the Ultimates. Like this is the 2000s.
Yeah, so like it's crazy to me. I had this conversation with a friend of the podcast, Adam Wood, earlier, about how the MCU was essentially structured off of, or at least early MCU was structured off of the Ultimate Universe, which I fucking can't stand. And yet, look at what has happened to me, Joshua.
I get it. Our first ever episode of Graphically Novel, the first episode of my first like comic book podcast with Bear, it was before Jen even joined, was on the Avengers, and we did the first Ultimates comic, which had its ups and downs, but it wasn't horrible. This whole series, the Ultimate series, started with Ultimate Spider-Man in 2000, and actually it was really good. Followed up by Ultimate X-Men and then the Ultimates. And yes, the MCU is loosely based on that version of the Avengers. But yes. It lasted 9 years. This is 2009, when Ultimatum happened, which was supposed to be the end. And then it kind of still struggled on, up until Secret Wars. But this was kind of the end of this version of the Ultimate Universe. And then, after this is how we got like Miles Morales and, some great stuff out of, the
ashes of whatever
new,
this is.
Right. Yeah. This is why, this version of Reed Richards turns into the Maker, which we've run into a couple times in this series.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. If you've never listened to this show before, may God have mercy on your soul. But this is how it will go. The presenting professor is Professor L. She will bring Jesse through this comic step by step. Anytime that Jesse feels the need, the want, or really the inkling, he can pull the emergency brake on the whole show to ask any questions, make any comments, really have a non sequitur. Just if he needs a break, we could talk about something else. But yes, but yeah, and then it'll be my job as the assistant professor, Professor J, to then answer his question. If I cannot answer his question, it'll go back to Leia, and if Leia cannot answer, we put up our hands, wiggle our fingers, and say comic books.
And I feel like there's going to be a lot of that.
Okay. Do you remember the Dawn episode? You remember?
I forget.
Yeah. I read every issue of Ultimate everything. So I have most of the answers to these things.
I feel like that's like Josh's like, I carry the darkness in my soul, but I do know the logic behind it.
Yes. The Lovecraftian esoteric knowledge is within me.
All right. Reed Richards is the jerk.
Yes, pretty much always. But yeah. So take it away, Professor L.
Yeah, this is a book that I read on purpose with my eyes. As Josh stated earlier, was written in about 2009, which is shocking because it reads like it was written in the late 90s, and it is drawn like it was also made in the late 90s.
It does have that 90s vibe to it.
The artwork in this particular book is, in my humble opinion, god-awful. Every single woman looks the same. I can't tell the difference between Carol Danvers, Sue Storm, and Valkyrie. So just to give you a baseline of what we're working on here, they all look like the same woman.
But it's a realistic woman, right? Like it's not like a fantasized, harmful depiction of women.
No, yeah, it's the worst. It's drawn by people who have maybe seen a woman once in passing. Like every woman has like.
It's just the LaCroix of female anatomy.
And pretty much, like every woman has breasts that appear to be filled with helium.
Except oddly for Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, except for Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde is drawn as 12. Yeah.
Right. For variety's sake, they're like, let's not do that here. So we start off in I believe the Baxter building. The other thing that's interesting to note here, because I had to ask for a correction on there, I had and not a correction, but I had to ask a question to see if there needed to be a correction. To friend of the podcast, Adam Wood, confirm that this is so. It introduces them as home of the Fantastic Four teenage adventure heroes. Now I've got a lot of questions about that. In terms of like, how did they get their powers at their teens? Like, who's shooting teens into space? What's going on with that?
Sue's father, actually.
What, does he not have any regard for the safety of his child, or what?
So they were all in a school for like super gifted people. Like imagine if they weren't mutants, they're just like Mensa teens, and Sue and Johnny's dad is like, all right, we're field trip to space.
Oh God, I hate this already. So they're ostensibly, according to this, teenage adventure heroes, which immediately just filled my stomach with dread. And they're drawn like they're in their 30s. So standard early 2000s, or late 2000s comic book art. When they're at the Baxter building, doing whatever. It also looks like, Reed Richards
I apologize. I've just corrected myself. They did not go to space for this. They got their powers from the End Zone, which is an alternate plane of existence that Reed was fucking around with in the school. Better?
Not better.
Sorry.
That's all right. Let's just fucking do this. Oh my God. It's just so bad. Anyways, Reed Richards is about to propose to Sue Storm, but they're teens, so make of that what you will. Ben appears to be bench pressing some concrete, and Johnny is having like the stupidest teen argument with his dad in the kitchen. Like,
when I was rereading this last night, I actually heard your voice in my head going, "You're not my dad."
It's right. What? Like, at your age, Johnny, your sister was 30. Yeah, like, stop comparing me to Sue, Dad. You don't get me, Dad. You never will, Dad. Like, fuck off.
You're Dad and I'm Doug. I'm out of here.
Oh, my God. I haven't thought about that in years.
I
yeah,
love the state.
He's Doug, and that's Dad. Meanwhile, at Tony Stark's mansion, Tony is drinking a martini and wanting to bathe in it. There's also something that Tony says to Steve here that I'm not clear on. He tells Steve that he needs to loosen up and have a drink and stop thinking about another man's wife.
So Steve is in love with Janet Van Dyne, who is Hank Pym's wife, who Hank has tried to murder by spraying her with bug spray when she was tiny, in her tiny wasp form, because
I hate this universe.
I have a rhetorical interjection.
Uh-huh.
So, once upon a time in the 60s, an artist got overly enthusiastic with a husband hitting a wife, which is never good, but that turned into a character trait of Hank Pyms to be a stout and run through the 90s filter of the early 2000s. That's attempted murder. And to make Captain America interesting, they decided that he should be wanting to be an adulterer.
Yes, and in fact, he when Cap found out about it, he went to a bar where Hank was and almost beat him to death.
Cool. So
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and since we're already stopped, I got to talk about Tony and why Tony drinks in this. Not just because he's an alcoholic, because Tony Stark was born with every fiber of his being a brain cell, which is why he is so smart. And the downside to this is he is in constant pain.
I hate that. I knew that. I hate that so much. So somebody said there's too many comic books for new readers, and gamma radiation we know more about now than we did in the 60s. That's silly, and decided to make it more modern. Some one would have a brain cell for every.
Yes.
My science curriculum was Bob Jones, and I know that's wrong. And I know that's wrong. Like how? What? Why?
My friends, we are only 3 pages in.
Okay.
That's it. Everything I say going forward, you're just gonna have to make that same noise. Like, okay, like, because it's not gonna make any more sense from here, and it's only gonna get stupider.
I'm also going to say we're going to save lives with this episode. When people are like, hey, should I read the Ultimate Universe? I'll be like, you can read the first part of it. You can read Spider-Man, some X-Men. The first trade of Ultimates is good. And then this is why you just stop.
Yeah.
And skip to Secret War, which, while ridiculous, is not this bad.
No.
In fact, in retrospect, Secret War is better because it killed this universe.
Secret War is a masterpiece.
Gotta bar Doom!
It's art. So that happens. And then Thor and Valkyrie are sparring. She pops off the line, swordplay, foreplay, it's all good as long as I'm with you, Thor. And that was when I closed the book and walked away. This is
good. So we're done. Fantastic.
Yeah. That's so fucking bad. Hawkeye and Hank Pym Yellow Jacket are hanging out with Janet, who they do bring up the ant spray thing. I don't know why Hawkeye's hanging out, because he doesn't seem to like him very much, but whatever.
He's watching, like, Janet has forgiven Hank and is back with him, and Hawkeye has decided he is going to be around as often as possible to keep an eye on Hank to make sure he doesn't hurt Janet again.
Cool. Love it. Love this universe. Anyway, meanwhile, on an L train with Peter Parker, we have Mary Jane, Gwen, and Kitty Pryde hanging out. They reference talking. They reference going to see Dark Knight, which is kind of funny to me.
Yes. 2009, everybody.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in the Broadway Theater District, the X-Men, who are described here as heroic teenage mutants, which, again, what is the obsession with everybody being a teenager? That's the other thing I can't figure out. Why does everybody have to be a teen?
So in 2000, when they launched the Ultimate Universe, the idea was that it was supposed to be Marvel for people who have never picked up a Marvel comic. And the idea was good, right? It was Marvel's version of DC rebooting their universe, because you don't want to, pick up a Spider-Man comic and it's, issue number 492, and it says, for details on this, pick up issue number 30.
Right.
By the way, this is the early 2000s. We don't have digital backlogs where you could just log in. You have to go and find this particular comic.
Yeah, that's
so.
Right. I did. That was remember that being a pig in the ass.
Yeah.
Can I counterpoint slightly to that?
Oh.
So I'm an old man, and I grew up in the 80s where you had editor's notes and long boxes in your local comic shop, and that was the internet.
Yes.
Yeah, you might miss a thing. But first of all, we all know Gwen Stacy died because no one would shut up about it. Like, they were serialized, which, the industry changed, but they were serialized, so you didn't really miss a whole lot. Like, this figure has been following me for 3 issues. Okay, I know what everyone who's read those 3 issues is. It's a shadowy figure following you. And the joy of discovery, right? The joy of going back and buying old issues and going to garage sales and filling in the blanks. I know the story of 1980s Captain America, and I have probably 80 to 90% of like that 10-year run. But still to this day, if there's an issue missing, like the missing piece to the story is still a thrill. People are not so dumb that they can't follow a story. Days of His Life didn't like reboot with the young whatever. I think obviously accessibility is good. Obviously they were writing these scripts thinking, how do we streamline it so that we can turn them into movie scripts, because this was the MCU. They do that before we did. But this you can't follow a story and you can't go back and get information, and therefore the entire like hobby is ruined, is It seems silly to me.
I guess it depends on.
Books that are 20 years old. Where do I start? Where do I? Because they're all 6, 12 issue runs, which is fine, but they all are Superman : whatever, Captain America : Battle of Love. I don't know which one comes first.
Right.
I don't know where to start. Now I can go online and find that out pretty easily, but
I mean, now you can. And as somebody who started a podcast, graphically novel, its entire purpose was, did you like this movie, this TV show, this whatever? Here's a good place to start in the comics.
But that podcast, is there a reason?
What's that?
But this isn't on that podcast. Do you not recommend this one, Josh?
The Ultimates, the beginning of this is absolutely on. It's our first ever episode,
right?
But this was a recommendation for, do you like the MCU? Do you want to see where they got the ideas? It was also our first episode, and we didn't know shit about shit. And so now I probably would recommend something different, because the MCU has also grown. We did that episode shortly after the first Avengers movie came out. So yeah. But yeah, my counter to your counter is more, where did you grow up, and did you have access to more than one comic book store? Because I grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I had a comic book store for maybe 4 years out of my entire childhood that actually stayed in business.
I was going to say, like, when I was a kid, I spent most of my summer reading comic books because there was not a lot else to do up in very rural northern Wisconsin, where we spent most of our summers. And there was one place in town that I could buy comic books. I'd have to walk down a dirt road to the general store and get whatever happened to be on the spinner at the time. And if it was missing issues or they didn't carry whatever it was that week, month, whatever, tough shit, there's nowhere else to go. The spinner rack is the only place. They didn't carry them in the library. They didn't carry them anywhere else. It was very literally the only shop in town, and I was a minor who did not possess a driver's license. So, like,
that is very fair. Let me apologize for my slightly less rural bias.
It's okay.
I lived in the middle of several small towns, so we had several small comic shops, and it was
okay.
Yeah.
Now, I agree with you. Once I got my driver's license, and I could actually get to like Iowa City or the occasional trip to Des Moines that actually has Mayhem Comics, which is fucking amazing. Then it became the chase. Then it became fun because, yes, you're right. Yes. At a garage sale, I had gotten, through several garage sales through my teens, I had found, I think, 4 out of the 12 issues of Maximum Carnage. So going to, actual comic book stores and going through their long boxes and finding the pieces I didn't have, that was a thrill. I agree with you. But the thought here was, not everybody's going to be into that. And how do we become more inclusive? So they started the Ultimate line. Now, where it went from there, I don't know. If they made everybody teenagers and they were trying to get a bunch of teenagers to read these comics, I don't know why they went. I mean, I do know why they went this way. It's because it was the 2000s.
Quesada then?
Yes.
No, Quesada,
Before. Because
Quesada was after this.
I just realized that in this one panel where they're introducing the X-Men, they're in Broadway in the theater district, and right behind them as they're walking on the street, there's an advertisement for Wicked, and it says a new musical. So that tells you exactly when this was written.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And to answer your question, Quesada wasn't involved. This was Bendis's baby. Brian Michael Bendis was responsible for the Ultimate Universe.
Person.
So anyway, back to
okay. Let's just get through this. We're gonna make it. Anyways, the X-Men are here. That's really all you need to know. They're not doing anything important on this panel. It's Beast, Angel, Nightcrawler, and somebody named Allison, who I don't know.
Dazzler.
Thank you. I knew you would know.
for my sins.
The next page abruptly just cuts to like a panel of each of these aforementioned groups. So Sue and Reed, Thor and Valkyrie, Peter and Mary Jane, and then the 4 X-Men. So one panel a piece, and all of a sudden it just starts pissing rain like thunderstorming. Okay, no problem. Within seconds, apparently, all of New York was flooded. Like, and when I say flooded, I mean like not little flooded, like skyscrapers are starting to become engulfed by water, sort of flooding. Everybody freaks out, understandably so. And Reed manages to sort of parachute away, I guess. It's hard to tell what's going on in this panel.
Turns his body into a parachute.
Sure, fine, whatever. I don't fucking care. Fuck, it's the entire book. The thing is depicted, it's holding back on what appears to be a humpback whale from crashing through a skyscraper, which I have, anyways. Hank Pym, in the yellow jacket suit, embiggens himself and, he manages to break free of the water, and he's calling for Jan. In Midtown Manhattan, Bruce Banner is slowly drowning, but then the Hulk wakes him up and he emerges from water in Midtown Manhattan and is Hulk. So that's cool. That's the thing that's happening. Peter and Mary Jane also managed to break free. Or no, I'm sorry, Peter and Kitty managed to break free. And are they like together in this?
They have been. He's together with Mary Jane right now, but Kitty and Peter were dating for a time in the comics when she left the Xavier Institute and went to his high school.
Okay, well, so that's
along with the Human Torch.
Yeah, I'm so tired. Anyways, Angel flies out of the water, I guess, with Dazzler, who is dead. And then Tony Stark and Captain America are also trying to get out. Now, Tony has the Iron Man suit that keeps him protected. Cap does not have that. And so he flies out of the water with Cap, who's not doing very well. Tony basically puts like an APB out to everybody else, Thor, Hawkeye, Wasp, who else made it. And they're in the chaos. Meanwhile, at the top of the Baxter building, Sue tries to use her force field to push the water out of the city, and she's partially successful, and then collapses because it's too much for her to handle. There is a good line in here where the Thing crawls up to the top of the building and says, "Hey, can you tell me what the hell is going on in 25 words or less?" Reed, and Reed replies, "I don't know."
Sweet Jewish boy.
Yeah, it's a good Jewish boy, Ben. It's like, you did it in 3. Didn't think you had it in you. God bless. Oh, but so Reed charges. This Sue's unconscious. Reed charges Ben to get her somewhere safe to try to revive her or whatever. Get Johnny or Dr. Storm to help her or whatever. And unfortunately, Ben's like, yeah, I think they're dead. Reed pieces out. He pieces out to find Namor, because he's certain that Namor is behind this, which is actually a pretty logical conclusion, right? So, okay, makes sense. Namor's probably up to something because water is involved, right?
Right. Well, and he wants to declare war on the surface, so
exactly. So, he's got 2 strikes already, so sure, it's probably Namor. So he takes the Fantastic Four jet boat or whatever the fuck, to try to find Namor. Namor is, of course, a dick. Oh man, I love Namor. Namor.
It's important. It's also important to say that this version of Namor doesn't have the stupid wings on his feet, so you didn't have to put it in the goddamn movie. It wasn't required for him to have wings on his feet because it's dumb.
It is very goofy, and I don't like it. But Reed's like, "You killed everybody. You killed all of them." And Namor, of course, is like, I could care less what you think. But he lets Reed know that he didn't actually do anything. Reed, of course, doesn't believe him. They fight. And then we cut over to Latveria, where Doctor Doom is having some problems because his castle is like frozen. Like people are frozen mid-stride. Like it has turned into a giant freezer. How he has remained unaffected by this is completely unclear, but I don't care, so we're gonna keep moving. He throws open the door to Castle Doom or whatever, and people are just mid-stroll frozen. He's not happy. Meanwhile, at the X Academy in Westchester, Professor X is screaming and has thrown himself on the floor out of his wheelchair because he's having a bad time. Billions of people are dead. Millions of mutants are dead as well. And so Professor X decides that he's going to warn, the Ultimates of that he knows what happened, and he knows why. We then got to get together and, form this Ultimate Super Team. And of course, the X-Men are here because I don't like them. No, that's not true. I don't dislike the X-Men. I've said that many times. I just like X-Men plotlines. X-Men is a concept, A+.
I have an emergency break question / lament. So once again, everything is falling apart and Professor X knows what's going on and is going to gather everybody rather than just like tell somebody what to do, right? That's going to happen again.
He's sending them coordinates and telling all of them what happened. I think Leigh is getting to that. But yeah, and specifically, he's sending it to every superhero left on Earth.
Yeah.
That he knows about.
Yes.
Charles always know what's happening.
Well, in this case,
okay, I will. I'll trust the process.
Yeah. So in this case, we now cut to Magneto, who is sitting on a giant egg floating in the sky.
Going to be wondering what's going on, and then you say things like Magneto sitting on a giant egg.
I don't know how else to describe or explain what's.
I'm not blaming you. I'm not shooting the message.
It's the ultimate version of Asteroid M, except it's within the atmosphere, and due to Magneto's whatever, he just makes it float.
Sure, fine. Anyways, he's sitting on a giant egg floating around. So stupid looking. But Charles informs the heroes as we are looking at this giant egg, that Magneto has told Charles in the past that he has like a doomsday plan, that Charles never thought he'd act on, which involves the murder of 6 billion people, every man, woman, and child on the planet. And then we cut over to Magneto sitting atop his Magneto throne. And he's got Thor's hammer with him for some reason. Magneto can also hear him because I guess like Charles forgot that his mind broadcast was on to Magneto. I don't know. Like, I truly don't. This seems like a massive oversight.
They do not care. It's really what I got is they just don't. I don't know because also he's wearing his helmet, so that shouldn't work.
Right. Like, how is he hearing this mind broadcast? Because then he responds to it and is like, yes, Charles, bring everyone. I will tell them myself. They have to pay the ultimate price. Okay, fine. But how is he receiving this transmission?
I don't know.
Yeah. So anyways,
cue the latest Disturbed song.
Yeah, no shit. So anyways, this is why I have struggled with X-Men so much. Anyways, that's the end of the first issue. Thank God. We got 4 more to go, so buckle up. Meanwhile, in Midtown Manhattan, after the massive tidal wave flooding, Spider-Man is trying to clear out the section of road with all the kind of smashed cars, debris, whatever. And he's working with Giant Man to kind of clear the area a bit. There's not a lot that it seems. I mean, it seems like it's like trying to take a push broom to like all of this debris. They're not doing a whole lot. Hulk is there. He offers to help. Meanwhile, at the Triskelion shield base, Iron Man is bringing in Captain America for emergency medical attention. He by literally not using the door and crashing through a pane of glass that is located directly above the door, just for extra drama, because that's Tony for you. Yeah.
Jesse, just because you asked about how people are drawn, I encourage everyone to look at the art in this comic or look up what Carol Danvers looks like in the Ultimate Universe. That is what she looks like.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, you remember Carol Danvers from such films as Ms. Marvel.
Debbie Does Dallas.
Debbie Does Dallas. It's literally what I said. I was like, Adam, why is Carol Danvers drawn like a pornography star?
This is someone doing bad Brian Hitch, isn't it?
It's so bad.
This is Stormy Daniels waiting for Trump's trial is what this is.
Yeah, like I did not. If there were not like a name patch over her enormous breast that said Colonel Danvers, I truly wouldn't have known who this was. Completely unrecognizable. And I don't know, or I don't remember, I should say, who she is. I know she's obviously not Captain Marvel at this point. She's Marvel?
Just the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's the head of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay, I don't.
Ms.
Whatever.
Marvel, but yeah,
Ms. Marvel, sure, fine. And she's also got just like two like her cartoonishly enormous guns to go with her cartoonishly enormous breasts.
I also want to say, I know it's a thing, the little like arm brace thingy for your gun, like the thing that sticks out, but it just looks like a cock gun to me.
Yeah, well, I agree. It just, it's bad. The artwork here is bad. She informs us that there's been a tidal wave in Manhattan. Eastern Europe has been flash frozen, and volcanoes are erupting in the Amazon. So the whole planet is gone crazy. And now Captain America is not breathing. Tony's very upset. They are trying to revive Steve. And Carol is like, hey, look, I know you're going to be going after Magneto. We can help with like ground support, communications, and whatever. And Tony's like, hey, Carol, shut up. Give Cap his shield when he wakes up. I'm leaving. So once he puts his helmet back on, he finds out that the Triskelion is under attack. Everybody's been ordered to battle positions. Meanwhile, at Tony Stark's mansion, again in Midtown of Manhattan, Hawkeye and Yellow Jacket are still looking for Jan. And he's still in Giant Man form because sure. And Hawkeye literally like climbs up his leg. It was like try to get Hank Pym to listen to him. And Hank is threatens to squash Hawkeye like a bug. And Hawkeye is like, hey, look, we can, why don't we work together so that we can find her faster? Like, I've got better eyes than you do. He says that he's gone through some kind of vision enhancement program. I don't know what that is. I also want to point out Hawkeye's wearing a very weird costume. He's basically got like a full face cowl, but it's purple, but his hair is sticking out, so that's strange. And then he's got red goggles and a bullseye in the center of his forehead. I don't like this. Please, Clint, don't do this again.
As an archer, wouldn't you discourage bullseyes on your person?
I mean,
it feels extra something.
Yeah.
So the program is most superheroes were created in a super soldier program. So in this world, Hawkeye is a kind of super soldier.
Jesse, yeah. Will you pray with me?
The guy The kind of prayer that only works with two separate faiths.
Yeah.
Yes, 1,000%. And possibly, like what?
This is so bad. I think that only the higher power could get us through the rest of this.
You all said this looks like it was drawn in the 90s. I'm like, okay, like that's, it's early 2000s, mid 2000s. The cow with the hair sticking out, like that's just,
yeah, it's bad. It's so
It
bad.
reminds me of Wildcats,
Oh yeah.
which was a very 90s.
Yeah. Anyways, so he went through this program, and he's like, why are you even here, Clint? You said the Jen shouldn't be anywhere near me. And Clint's like, I know what it's like to lose the woman you love, and nobody needs that kind of pain. I don't know who he's referring to. Is this Nat this time?
No, Mockingbird.
Okay, I figured it was either Nat or Mockingbird. I can never quite place, even though, again, I love
No,
Widow. I could never quite place in what order, because Clint kind of goes back and forth, I feel like, a few times between the two of them. So,
right, but in this world, Black Widow only showed up long enough to have a sex tape with Tony Stark and then left.
why is my girl always get done so dirty?
Because they didn't have Maria Hill in this universe.
It's a good enough answer for me. I'll take it. Meanwhile, at the Baxter building, for reasons that are unclear, Ben has been put in charge to watch over Sue while she's unconscious, in a hospital bed. And there's really nothing that Ben can do here, that Ben Grimm could do. And he even acknowledges this. He's like, there's nothing, the doctors have just told me that all I could do is sit around and wait. This, I feel like we probably have used nice Jewish boy Ben Grimm in a better way, but whatever, Reed. And as he's sitting there talking to Sue, who's in a coma, all of a sudden her invisibility powers start making Ben's hands invisible, and then a force field sort of pushes him through the window that's nearby. He manages to hold on to the side of the building and not be blown off of it. But that's happening. That's fine.
That answers my question.
6 miles off the coast of New York City, the fantastic jet boat is being driven by Reed. And he is literally he's fake newsing himself out of the situation. He's like, I don't care that Professor X showed up in my head and said this is all Magneto's fault. It's my opinion that Namor has done this, and I will not be swayed by it. Basically,
Manhattan was a false flag attack.
right. It's just the most. It's oh man, I don't care that these facts have been given to me. I absolutely believe that Trump won the election.
Right.
And so yeah, so he is attempting to jet boat through the ocean when it stops working, and it's because it's being tractor beamed up by a helicarrier, I guess. I know it's the Doom. It's like the Doom version of a helicarrier. I don't know how to describe it. It looks like one, but isn't one. But yes, it is being driven by Dr. Doom. Or not driven, but I mean, it's a Doom thing. And Reed is like, hey, what the hell? And Doom is like, you're an idiot, Reed. Namor had nothing to do with this, even though you very much would like there to have been weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Really, it was in fact Magneto, yes. And he has offset the magnetic poles on Earth, creating an ecological nightmare. That's what's causing all of these problems. Reed, being a super genius, is like, well, why should I believe you? How do I know you weren't involved? And Doom was like, man, shut the hell up.
I will I will bitch man slap you.
We gotta find Nick Fury. And Reed is like, well, that's not possible because Fury was left in another universe where the Squadron Supreme lived. I don't know what that is, and I don't care to find out.
The Squadron Supreme is a Captain America thing, I thought, but it's a previous storyline.
Yeah, I think it was a previous storyline of some sort, and whatever.
It was Marvel's The Boys. It was Marvel's Watchmen.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the bright side of comic because it was Mark Gruenwald and not, Alan Moore. But it was the What If Superheroes Will Be Real 80s storyline.
Right. Yes.
So Doom introduces somebody named Zarda, who is the Squadron's power princess. And this is also when I closed the book and walked away. I've never heard of this person before or since. She is drawn like every other woman in the book, which is to say the only distinguishing factor between her and any other woman is her hair color. Her change, she's not blonde. And Doom also calls her a criminal, so I don't know how, who knows. But apparently this sort of person is going to help them to save the world. Sure. Over New York City, meanwhile, Thor is riding Pegasus to try to find Valkyrie, and he's also armed with what I believe is Valkyrie's sword, since Mjolnir is with Magneto for unspecified reasons. I have to assume he had something to do with an earlier part of this storyline.
Do you want to know the reason?
Sure.
Because Magneto's mutant power is so powerful that it's more powerful than magic. And Mjolnir was formed from a meteorite that had crashed on Asgard, and so it is part metal.
I want to go home.
Aren't you at home?
Yes. I want off this ride.
And that would also be King Arthur, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Thor, and again, in a unnecessary moment, Thor does come across Valkyrie, who is lying half nude and unconscious, apparently unconscious, at the base of the Statue of Liberty, which has been trashed. The Statue of Liberty has been mostly destroyed, and that's where she has ended up, is just sprawled out at the base of Statue of Liberty.
I was sure. Is it me or JR that's tried to quit the podcast the most times?
I think just the Sex Criminals episode alone, JR has tried to quit the most. But if we take that episode out, it's you. In retrospect, taking a homosexual man through a very hetero fantasy comic probably was not the wisest idea.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot for him there at Sex Criminals.
Okay, carry on. Whatever. Just
so yeah, she appears to be dead, or enough for Thor to be like, no, sort of thing. It's like, that's it. Things are going to change around here. There's a clap of thunder, and then all of a sudden he's in front of Hela.
Who's Valkyrie?
What's that?
Did they just fridge Valkyrie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
with the tidal wave. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
also for some reason Hela is dressed as Lady Death.
Yeah. Real weird. But Hela is out there, and Hela's like, look, I know why you're here. I'll give you back the soul of the person you love, but you have to pay a price. So Thor's like, okay, fine, make it fast. I'm needed back on Earth. Let's go, let's do this thing. And so Hela's like, okay, well, defeat my army of fallen warriors, and you will be rewarded. And so Thor's like, no problem. It just starts, having at this group of skeletons, is just fighting some skeletons, and then all of a sudden a skeleton who is behind Thor, has an axe raised up, looks like he's going to get the drop on Thor, when Captain America's shield comes flying through and takes the hands off of the skeleton. And Thor is like, Captain, you're here. Wait, hang on. How are you here? And Steve is like, well, I don't know. We'll figure that out, as this, when this is all done.
Spoiler alert, they do not.
They do not.
Wait, Bendis doesn't finish the loose ends. It just says everything's fine and gives Hawkeye the like moral of the story and all the answers to the question. And then
in this case, Loeb, but yeah.
This is Loeb. This isn't Bendis.
Right. Well, I mean, Bendis is still like the main editor, so it's the both of them.
Who let Bendis be an editor?
This entire line is Bendis. Bendis is in charge of the Ultimate line.
Bendis is a true auteur in that he needs a good editor.
Well, this is what happens when you don't have regulations.
Yeah.
This is the unregulated free comic market.
Oh my god. So anyways, we're back in New York, and Hank and Hawkeye are still on the lookout for Jan. But Hawkeye asks to be put down because he thinks he sees something. And so Clint is put down on the ground and comes across this panel is very famous. I feel like it was just a full page panel of Blob eating a very dead Jan with the caption "tastes like chicken," and completely unnecessary grossness that I feel like was kind of par for the course at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I gotta say about that. Meanwhile, back
and if you hated that panel, wait for the next one.
Yeah, shit. Meanwhile, back at the Professor X Academy, Magneto and Professor X are now face to face. And Charles is like, I never thought you would do this, Magneto. And Charles is like, hey, look, I know why you're doing this. It's for revenge, but even this isn't gonna do anything to fix anything. And Magneto's like, my children are dead. And okay, Jesse, this is where I'm gonna need your help. So hang on, for a second. Or no, it's a little bit later on. So give me a minute. He does point out that, when God didn't like what he created, he washed it all away in 40 days and 40 nights, and he, Magneto, will do it for free. And Charles is like, well, I'd be stating the obvious and pointing out that you are not God. No matter whether or not you think you're doing any good here, you will only be remembered as a madman like Pol Pot, Bin Laden, and Hitler. The last of which is enough to absolutely enrage Magneto, because this is apparently this took place pre-internet, because like that's a daily occurrence. People accusing the other person of being literally Hitler.
Right. And Josh, is Magneto Jewish? And
yep.
Yeah,
still
there's like a beat after he is accused of, he'll be remembered like Hitler. There is literally just a beat where you just see Magneto's eyes like enraged, and then the next panel is of him snapping Charles's neck. Like he would not have done well on like Reddit. So he just straight up snaps the neck of Charles Xavier. It's like, hey, you fucked up every one of my plans, and that's it. It had to stop. Good day to you, sir. That's how issue 2 ends. So we're not even halfway done. Meanwhile, the Scarlet Witch is informing Magneto that Dazzler, Beast, Nightcrawler, Emma Frost, Sunspot, Cannonball, Polaris, Longshot, Forge, Detonator, Hard Drive, and now, of course, Professor X are all dead. The only ones that seem. Oh, go ahead.
I just said nothing says stakes like killing the B team.
Right. And Professor X.
Yeah. The people that they're unaccounted for, or confirmed alive, are Angel, Havoc, and I think that's it. We cut to a panel that, again, unnecessary and gross, where Magneto is on his, Magneto throne or whatever, and Scarlet Witch is like kind of like hovering slightly behind him, like just over his shoulder, but doing that very classic, horrible comic book female sex pose, wearing the horrible thong and bustier, like strapless bustier that Scarlet Witch occasionally has worn in the past.
The one that has to require glue on her tits.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And he's listening to what appear to be news reports from all over, about how all these people are dead or dying, or whatever. There's also now there's a rash of suicide bombers, but they all look the same, and volcanoes, earthquakes, everything that REM sings about in that one song. All of those are happening.
So the reason that all of the suicide bombers look the same is because they're all multiple man. They're all Jamie Madrox just creating duplicates, strapping bombs to themselves and going to different places.
Yeah. So this woman is like, Daddy, did you do all this for me? And Magneto immediately starts to like Homer Simpson strangle her, and it turns out that it's Mystique. And it's like, hey, don't fuck with me. My Wanda and Pedro's deaths are the direct catalyst for this, basically. They branded me a terrorist, but I am very sane. I think that you would think this is reasonable. And this is when we find out, that Multiple Man has been the suicide bomber, because he shows up and is like, you've killed mutants, you've turned on your own people, I've been making duplicate after duplicate, for weeks, and I'm making an army of suicide bombers, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And then Magneto's like, yeah, sure, and launches Mjolnir at him, and he explodes.
So it's important to note that when Jamie Madrox creates a duplicate, they can have their own thoughts and feelings. So this one is obviously a flaw in the manufacturing process, where it realized this was not cool, and so tried to blow up Magneto.
I mean, points are effort. Magneto starts talking about how after the Great Flood, God spared Noah and his family because he knew that they would be loyal, and now he is going to choose who lives and who dies, because the people who remain, the people that he chooses to keep alive, will be grateful for, finding themselves in basically heaven on earth. So contrary to what he has stated, Magneto is quite nuts. We cut back over to Manhattan, where Hawkeye and Yellow Jacket are attacking the Blob. Hank, of course, is very pissed and picks him up away from the body of Janet, and again, unnecessary. Grabs the Blob, bites his head off, and spits it out.
Yep.
Picks up Janet, who, again, her intestines are hanging out. It's like, it's all right, Jan, it'll be okay. We'll get you fixed up. And Hawkeye is like, she's not okay. She's dead. And Hank Pym has happened none of this. He's like, oh no, I can save you. I can be the hero here. Triskelion has the lab equipment I need to repair you. And Hawkeye's like, oh fuck, man.
I can be your hero, baby.
In the sewers underneath the city, Wolverine finds the corpse of Nightcrawler, Cyclops is also here, as well as Angel and Jean and Iceman and Storm.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like also kind of going through the rubble trying to locate survivors. And they're also kind of bickering. Angel's like, I have nothing left to live for. And Wolverine shows up with Nightcrawler's body. And so he's like, hey, you guys aren't going to try to go up against Magneto alone. Like, we've got to get everybody, as many people as we can. Like, all the teams, the X-Men, the Ultimates, Fantastic Four, etc., and so forth. And as they're kind of talking / bickering with one another, Jean grabs her head, screams, and is like, "Oh no, Charles, Professor X, he's dead." And that's that. Meanwhile, in Valhalla, Captain America and Thor are still fighting the Skeleton Army, and they're just kind of chit-chatting back and forth about like, hey, when we're out of this, do you want to hang out? And they managed to defeat the army, and Hell's like, okay, well, here's the body of Valkyrie, but she can't leave. And I told you that there was going to be a price. You could leave with her, for a price. The price wasn't just fighting the army of the dead. I just did that for the lulz. But really, if I allow somebody to leave the land of the dead, one person has to essentially sacrifice themselves to stay here in their stead. And Steve, being Steve, is like, I'll stay here, bud. And Thor's like, I can't ask you to do that. Meanwhile, back at the Triskelion, the Iron Man and Carol Danvers are there, and they're kind of just collecting people and fighting as best they can. One of the multiple men, suicide bombers, just as he's about to blow himself up for the glory of Magneto, his eye is pierced with an arrow, which has arrived along with Hank. And so Hank hands off the corpse of a wasp to Tony and says, get her inside. There's an encrypted file marked the Jocasta Project. This is not referenced again.
Not in this.
Now, I know from the films that Jocasta is an AI program. And then that turns into, I think she turns into Vision's girlfriend eventually.
Yep. The bride of Ultron is what it was in the original comics.
Cool. That needed to happen.
It was an aborted arc. They didn't follow up with it. Okay,
great. But anyway, so he passes off Wasp's corpse, says go get the Jocasta Project. I'll take care of the rest. And Tony's like, hey, look, every single one of those, because there's a bunch of multiple men that have converged on this place. And Tony's like, hey, dude, every single one of those guys that's coming at us has a bomb, and Hank is like, I don't care. Get her inside. I'm going to scoop up all these dudes. And he does. And Clint is like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm doing what needs to be done. And just keep Jan safe. And Clint is like, again, I really need to stress, I can't keep her safe. She's dead. There's nothing I can, she's beyond the point of safety. And Tony tries to go after him as well. And he's like, no, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but this is not it. Like, tell Jan I'm sorry and I love her. And then he just explodes because of all the multiple men strapped to him as he's walking into like the ocean. Meanwhile, on Liberty Island, Valkyrie wakes up, is looking for Thor, realizes that he is still in the land of the dead somehow, comes across Tony, informs Tony that Thor is dead, and sacrificed himself, and also Cap was there. And Tony's like, what are you talking about? He's unconscious. He's in the hospital. And Valkyrie's like, look, this is I'm just I don't make the news. I'm just reporting it, and I'm gonna go kill Magneto. Meanwhile, Steve returns from his coma, or it's the land of the dead, or whatever, and is like, hey, I'd be dead if it wasn't for Thor. He sacrificed himself so that I could live. And then like kind of grabs Clint and is like, I got news for you, buddy. He's not the only one. You know, like, it's weird. He's like weirdly aggressive towards Clint, like, and he's like, Clint's like, the guy that hated you, is now dead. He's dead because the woman you both loved is dead. And Steve's like, oh no, Chan, and picks up his shield. It's like, that's it. We're getting out of here. We're gonna go save the world. Whatever, fine. That's how that book ends. We are now at issue 4, so just keep rolling with me here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Jesse?
No. Just regret.
Just regret.
I thought general regret sounds.
I thought it would be funny to pick the storyline that ends a line of books because we've done it before, and I thought it can't be. It won't be worse. It won't be worse than, oh my, just
Yeah.
Heroes Reborn.
the stab in the eye. Like,
Yeah, it's not good. Meanwhile, at Aunt May's house, Peter Parker and Spider-Man's home. Kitty Pryde and Wolverine are sitting around outside, and Kitty informs Logan that she thinks that Peter has died, and Logan's response is to pull what appears to be like a music box out of whatever pocket he's been holding that in for this entire time. Is like, hang on to this for me. Since we're going up against Magneto, if I don't come back, then you're going to need to open this up and you'll know what to do. And Kitty is like, hey, I want to go with you. And Logan's like, no, I'm leaving here with Bobby. You gotta keep an eye on each other, basically. And he does tell Kitty that, when this is all over and everything has to start over again, they're gonna need good people to basically rebuild, and Kitty's one of the best of them, which is very sweet. Meanwhile, at the home of Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, oh yeah, remember that guy, Hulk and Spider-Man are there for some reason. Peter asks Hulk not to smash things in Doctor Strange's house because it's filled with all kinds of mumbo jumbo. Hulk's response is, Hulk smashed mumbo jumbo, and he just starts smashing. This is of course bad because this opens all kinds of doors, right? All these magical artifacts, whatever he's smashing, and it doesn't go well for Peter. He essentially gets like vaporized, and the only thing that's left is his mask, which is what Kitty has found. This has also caused a problem in as much as it has released Dormammu. And Doctor Strange is like, all right, well, time to fuck you up. But it turns out that Dormammu somehow, it is unclear how, is channeling Johnny and is using his flame. Johnny Storm is using his flame to like enhance Dormammu's flames. Sure, I don't know. So Doctor Strange is like, hey, I'm gonna put you back in your bottle, but he can't. And Dormammu essentially like wraps Doctor Strange up in like what appear to be like mummy linens and chokes him out, and Doctor Strange dies. It's kind of like a bitch death. Like, I don't know.
His head explodes.
Yeah, very literally is just his head just is popped off.
What is the decapitation count on this so far?
It's pretty high.
6, right?
I feel like.
Something like that.
Thereabouts. There's a lot of you should have gone for the head going on in here.
And it's not over.
It's definitely not over. So Sue Storm and Ben Grimm arrive on the scene. and they're like, "Hey, get the hell away from my brother." Then there is a shadowy figure who is like, Steven. I don't know who that is. Meanwhile, in Lower Manhattan, Hulk is smashing, and Cyclops has arrived. So as Storm and Wolverine and co. And they're trying to get the military helicopters to back off of Hulk so he can do his thing. Hulk threatens to kill Wolverine for reasons that are maybe unclear. He does note that Hulk at one point did tear him in half.
Ultimate Hulk versus Wolverine, which was a silly, silly story.
Yeah. But then Jean Grey is like, "Hey, we're not here to hurt you. We need you to help us." And essentially inflicts what appears to be a charm spell on him because there are literal hearts drawn around Hulk. Is like, "Hulk will help pretty girl." Logan is like, "Hey, let's find Colossus and bring Hulk with us." Meanwhile, at the White House in the Supreme Power universe, Nick Fury, Reed Richards, Dr. Doom, Zarda, and Arcana are all meeting up.
Okay.
This made me feel tired. Meanwhile, so this is Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury at this point. And this is the only character in this entire particular run that I felt actually I could hear the voice of Samuel L. Jackson every time Nick Fury spoke. But Nick Fury is like, "Hey, what's happening?" And Reed is like, "Hey, we need you to come back with us." This is actually Dr. Doom's idea. And Zarda is like, "Hey, I don't recall us asking, so you gotta come with us now." And then blows something up, I guess, to prove a point. Unclear.
Yes. Yeah.
It's maybe a car.
It's his car. It's Fury's car.
And Fury keeps his cool and is like, "Okay, well, all right, well, tell me what's happening." And Reed gives them the DL. Fury immediately knows what it is. It's like, "Oh yeah, the Doomsday Protocol." Like everybody knows about it. And he's like, "Yeah, I warned you when you left me here. You take me out of the equation, and this is the kind of stuff that happens."
Yes, because when this whole thing happened with this alternate universe, they left Fury there on purpose because basically they blamed him for everything that had happened because of all his spy stuff that he had done and secrets that he kept. And yeah.
Wait, so what did they do with Fury?
They left him in an alternate universe. The heroes decided that they were better off without Nick Fury.
Gotcha. They planned to halt him, and now he's back.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and now they're back in that dimension to get him again.
Yeah. Like, we made this thing. And this is also when
it was clear.
Yeah.
This is also when Dr. Doom is like, "I have also made a mistake. I had Magneto's daughter, the Scarlet Witch, murdered. And I knew that I did this because I knew that Magneto was going to freak out and, declare war on humankind, and then I could swoop in and, be supreme ruler of Earth. But I didn't really realize that that Magneto had the power to destroy the human race. What good is ruling the Earth if there's no people to rule over?" And of course, everybody freaks out at him. And it's like, "What do you mean a little error in judgment? What the fuck?" So Nick Fury's like, "Okay, that's quite enough. Let's go." And so Arcana is like, "All right, well, I'll use my magic to get us all out of here." They go to the Magneto flying egg, which is above the Arctic Circle, and then Magneto is quoting either the Bible or I think it's the song by the Byrds, unclear.
To everything there is a season. Yeah. That's the.
That would be both, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay. And that's where I was going to ask, is that Old Testament or New Testament, Jesse?
That's in the Old Testament.
Okay, thank you. I figured it. I was like, I figured it probably was, but I was like, given how poorly this is written, I would absolutely buy that some comics writer had a Jew quoting the New Testament. I would absolutely buy it.
Yeah.
And as he's standing there quoting the Old Testament / the birds, he's like, yes, they've arrived. An angel crashes through the window and is like, I'll fucking kill you. And Magneto sends Sabretooth after him, and rips his throat out, Angel's throat out. And he manages to do that. And then as soon as that's done, he gets the old arrow to the eye from Hawkeye, who has now arrived. Valkyrie confronts Magneto, who is trying to escape with Thor's hammer. And she's again standing in this very awkward sex pose, and with one of those swords that's like comically larger than her. The art is just awful here. They barely fight before Magneto disarms her, and just as he's about to kill her, Captain America also crashes through the window and is like,
important point is she does chop off one of his arms, the one holding Mjolnir.
Yes, that is true. She does do that. And again, Captain America sort of not explicitly but subtly accuses Magneto of being Hitler.
And
maybe
the character should view that too. Cap not having any ties to World War II and therefore would be insensitive about the whole thing.
Right.
Dexter, though, wait. Continue.
Yeah.
It's annoying to throw Cap into around World War II.
And so Magneto's like, wow, I can't believe that even without Professor X, like they still are trying to resist me. This is crazy. He's like, well, don't worry about it. He quotes the Bible some more. God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. He's like super, super into that story. And that's how issue 4 ends. So now we're on the thrilling finale of this horrible story.
Like 20 pages to go, Leia. Home stretch.
All right. Meanwhile, we're still at Magneto's floating egg palace. Logan is here now. Logan is like, I will kill you. And he's like, all the other times we fought, I held back, but I can't, kill you if I'm not willing to die. But today I'm willing to die. Foreshadowing. So he starts going at X. Or he starts going at Magneto. They are fighting. Also the classic line, if you think you're God, I got news for you. If you're God, God is dead. So very edgy, late 2000s. Ian Stales quoting here. So at this point in time, Magneto is like, hey, want to see a cool trick? And he manages to use his magnet powers and Cyclops' open visor to combine into some sort of mega weapon that vaporizes Wolverine.
Yeah, and Iron Man's beam.
Yeah, did I not say that?
You said his magnet powers.
He uses magnet powers to override to use Iron Man's beam. And vaporizes Wolverine. Hawkeye is he talks. I can't even figure out who he's talking to here because he talks about
Jean. He's talking to Jean.
Well, he's talking to Jean. See, again, the women here are drawn all the same. It is so hard to tell what's which. But he essentially bonks Cyclops at the head to shut him down with an arrow. And Storm uses her electricity powers to neutralize Tony's suit. And he's like, he And then Magneto was like, you killed Wolverine. Like, wasn't me. You killed Wolverine. Wolverine, who is now just like a smoking, mostly skeleton guy, manages to reach up and grab Magneto. It's like, not yet. To which Magneto's like, okay,
Stabs him.
die now.
Yeah, Wolverine stabs him through the stomach.
Yeah, with his claws. Magneto then vaporizes him for real. And the X-Men and Hawkeye are only able to stand around and watch. He manages to tear the adamantium off of the skeleton of Wolverine. Like, that's how he manages to do that. So when I was reading this earlier and I was talking to a friend of the podcast, Adam Witt, I was like, I have some questions about how Magneto was able to do this, because I thought the conceit was like the adamantium doesn't respond to magnet powers or something.
No, it does. No, because it's a very famous storyline that Magneto tore the adamantium off of his skeleton in the mainstream comics.
Well, I hate this.
Yeah, I understand.
Magneto's powers are dictated by plot.
Yes. Magnets. How do they work?
How do they work?
Back to ICP.
I was about to say that.
So meanwhile, in the undercarriage of Magneto's floating egg, Jean Grey has instructed Hulk to smash its engines. And Colossus is also there, so at some point they grabbed Colossus. Mystique arrives to stop them. Hulk threatens to eat her. And they have planted a bomb in the bottom of the egg. Sabretooth manages to grab Mystique before the bomb goes off. They hang glide outside of the bomb or the egg, and they're fine. Meanwhile, Magneto is gloating over having killed Wolverine and is removing the Wolverine's claws out of his chest when he is confronted by Nick Fury, who has a gun on Magneto. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how absurd that is.
Mm-hmm.
Magneto's like, I'm not going to answer to you, and Nick Fury's like, well, you're not going to answer to me, you're going to answer to Jean Grey. Jean Grey is like, hey, Magneto, I'm going to go into your head, mess you up. And Magneto's like, if Charles could do that, what makes you think you can? And she rips his helmet off and is able to, get her telepathy powers rolling on him. And it turns out that the mutants in this universe were lab created. They're not gifted through genetics. They're all super soldier variants, basically. Like every single one of them. He's Magneto included. He's just a man who happens to have mutant powers because of a failed super soldier serum.
Uh-huh.
And then Magneto is like, oh no, what have I done? Immediately. Like, what have I done? And so Reed is like, you gotta fix the magnetic poles, buddy. Magneto's like, well, I don't know if I can. 3 seconds later, he's like, there we go, it's fixed.
Yep.
We're running out of panels and we can't delay this any longer. And so he's like, okay, it's fixed. I can't repair everything, but, at least it's not dangerous anymore. And Cyclops steps forward and is like, let me help you, Eric, just like Charles did for you all those years. And, Magneto's like, oh, Charles will understand. He'll forgive me. He's in tears. He's a mess. And Cyclops reminds him that Professor X is dead, and that he, in fact, was the one who killed him. Nobody is left to forgive him. And then he just, again, eye-beams Magneto's head off. And that's the end of Magneto there. I really do need to stress that Magneto was originally cornered by Nick Fury with a gun, which is made of metal, but I don't know if I'll ever going to be able to get over that point. So they leave, the egg explodes, Hulk is hungry, and Fury is like, all right, let's go back to it. It is also implied that Wolverine fully vaporizes, like what was left of his claws that were stuck in Magneto, like fully vaporizes, and he is now capital T dead. Cannot confirm if this is the truth because it's Wolverine, but whatever.
It is. His son Jimmy takes over.
Fuck. We're almost there.
Yep.
8 days later.
Just the prologue.
Yeah. 8 days later, there's a No More Mutants rally outside of the Capitol or the Senate building, and Cyclops is like, "Hey, look, we know that the world suffered a terrible catastrophe due to a mutant named Magneto. He was a known terrorist. Now he's dead. 9/11, never forget." And as he is talking and apologizing, is like, "Hey, this was certainly bad, but hashtag not all mutants." His head explodes. He has been shot like JFK. Chaos ensues. Carol Danvers is there. Kitty is also there, and so is Bobby. There's chaos in the crowd. People are, running and screaming, whatever. And he leaves. Meanwhile, in Latveria, Dr. Doom has Namor prisoner. A strange person comes in, cloaked, and it turns out that it's Ben. Ben's like, "Hey, Reed told me what you did, killing Magneto's kids so that he would go crazy and fuck up the world." Doom tries to shoot at him, and it doesn't do anything because it's Ben Grimm. And he's like, Reed doesn't have the stomach for this, but you gotta, you have to pay for what you did. He reaches out, it grabs Doom by the head, it just crushes, you can see his brain oozing out. Even Namor is horrified. There's just a panel of Namor's horrified face. Holy shit, dude. And then Ben Grimm, sweet, gentle Jewish boy Ben Grimm, with his bloodied hand and a satisfied look on his face. It's like, well, you had to pay for what you did. Finally,
Yep.
In the land of Wundagore, Mount Wundagore, in the Bavarian Alps, a person is talking to someone else about how Cyclops has been assassinated, and he managed to push through his brain the same bullet that the Scarlet Witch was shot with. He also has Magneto's helmet. It turns out that it is Wanda and Pietro who are making plans to start over without anyone to oppose them. Pietro, who looks
Gaunt.
He looks like he has not eaten for most of his life, except for his hair, which has been thriving. It notes that his father is gone now, but his dream lives on. And that's how this fucking story ends. So I hope you're happy with yourself. I didn't get it.
You guys need to listen to things, and I said, "Oh, this kind of fits a theme of my appearance on this show." I didn't write this. I didn't choose this.
I know. This was really bad, and for being only 100 some, I think it's 117 pages in collected trade, it was the longest read of my life. So,
oh God, yeah.
So
it's I know I quoted a lot on this show, but there's the line from MST3K of, "Come on, you guys, we survived Monsters of Go-Go, we could survive this." And just every time we run into one of these, I'm like, "Hey guys, we survived Heroes Reborn, we can survive this."
Oh, it's so bad. But yeah, so what did you think, Jesse?
I don't know. So Heroes Reborn at least served a purpose, right? It ended a thing. It created a bubble to start a new line. This was written, right, to end the product. We're not.
But then it didn't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but well, whether you go back to it or undo it or whatever, because comics, but like a bunch of people died, it would be really hard to write reimaginings of the Marvel universe without those people. But the universe still exists. They didn't
until Secret Wars, yeah.
Well, right, but they didn't know that then.
Right.
What's the purpose of this to end the Ultimate Universe?
It was to be kind of a soft reboot to introduce, like, they killed Peter Parker to introduce Miles Morales. They killed Wolverine to introduce Jimmy. So they killed heroes to introduce new versions of them that were specific to the Ultimate Universe. And my personal theory, because this was 2009, Secret Wars was 2015, they gave it 6 years to say what's popular, what's going to work.
Okay.
And out of all of that, it was just Miles Morales.
Yeah. So it's this, it's like so it wasn't to end the line, it was to, that's so stupid.
Yes, I agree.
Because the Miles Morales story of he has a Peter Parker who dies, who becomes his spiritual Uncle Ben, and then he carries on the mantle. You don't have to have Magneto flood the earth to tell that story. You just, Spider-Man, make it Miles's book going forward. Like, you don't, unnecessary is the only word I was thinking of the last hour. It's just,
so, yeah, right after Ultimatum, the Ultimate Comics entire imprint was relaunched as Ultimate Comics.
Oh, okay. So can't you just do that?
Right.
Start Ultimate Comics?
Right. Yeah, you'd think.
Like, can't you just, are people going to be so confused to go, there's this Miles Morales kid who's now Spider-Man, and there was a Peter Parker here. I wonder which Peter Parker it was. Like, that's not, I don't need that to be the Peter Parker from the Ultimate Universe. I certainly don't need it to be the one from the 616. Like, this is the company that made What If.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. No, but instead we got, God said Magneto, there's gonna be a floody.
Well,
oh man. This is the personification of the thanks I hate it gif.
Yeah.
And it's all like, none of it's clever.
No.
None of it's clever.
Like, there were maybe one or two kind of funny lines in this that were kind of clever, but even then it wasn't really.
This is the favorite comic series of the person that asks, when did X-Men become woke?
Hey, but no, this is the opposite of woke.
Yeah.
This is...
Right, that's what I'm saying, is that the people that are like, when did the X-Men become woke? And the answer is from issue fucking 1.
Yeah.
That was my other question. Like, so undoubtedly we live in an era and have been for a long time where fans are now in charge of the things they were fans of growing up, because that's how time works.
Yeah.
But I don't hear in this story anything that reflects the fun, the camp, the morals, the storytelling, the American myth of comic books.
I think that it does if you consider the time in which it was written, because this was like 2009, and not to be one of those people, but it was a different time, and it doesn't seem like it was, because it was like, it was only like 20 some years ago, but it was like that's like 25 years ago, a quarter century. So like, I think that it actually did reflect like stuff that was popular at the time. Like,
absolutely, it reflected things that was popular at the time, but it doesn't feel like it has any sense of, did they read the books in the 60s, the 70s, and even
no,
like, because I'll give you the Hulk eats people instead of smashing them. I'll give you, well, what is worse than spousal abuse, spousal attempted murder? Like, I'll give you, Captain America is, suddenly anti-French resistance and didn't actually, like, okay, Captain America is being written post 2001, and so he's going to reflect the time and the place, but he's not one to make a Hitler reference. He's not the one to be an adulterer. That's not who Steve Rogers is. And if you find that warning, that's fine. But if you're going to reboot it, it can reflect the present, but there's nothing there that has the foundation of who these people were.
Yeah. And that
there's no sense of goodness. There's no sense of right and wrong. Everybody's the bad guy.
Yeah. Everybody's edgy and cool.
Right. And I think we.
Please.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's interesting to make Nick Fury a traitor because that can reflect your understanding of the government, right? Maybe we don't want to play James Bond anymore. Maybe we don't trust the government like we did before the 60s and the 70s. Maybe there's something interesting to say about, oh, you think he's a good guy? He's not really. But nobody reflects who they were in the 616.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we're all kind of now in 2024 desensitized to how hopeless and bitter and everything else was in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I joke a lot. I've joked a lot about nu metal during this podcast, but really, like, looking at this and then remembering, like, this was the era of Limp Bizkit and Korn and POD
ICP and 9 Inch Nails.
ICP, Papa Roach, like, the music scene generally reflects the feel, right? The popular music scene reflects the feel of society at the time. And in the United States particularly, everyone, like, it was post 9/11 and it was just, we were in this war and, like, everything was hopeless and horrible, even in a different way than it's hopeless and horrible now.
Yeah.
Absolutely in a different way, because we had always, so I had graduated college by 9/11, and I honestly believed that, America would never face an attack like Pearl Harbor because people study history, right? And clearly that wasn't the case. They find this workaround. And I guess it is fair because who were the good guys? Because it wasn't the state. It wasn't religion. It wasn't, like, there weren't, I don't know. The thing I love about comic books is you can tell who the good guys are and who the bad guys are.
Yeah.
And people like the Hulk and Wolverine and the Punisher and even Nick Fury. Like, it's interesting to have those characters that are gray that it can bounce back with their allegiances because the world isn't that simple.
Right.
But I have access to the New York Times and I have access to, Comixology. I'm going there for different reasons.
Right. And I think, too, that this was written at a time where we were post 9/11 enough to realize, or like, people were starting to begin to realize that, like, kind of the corny jingoism of to characterize the first half of the 2000s was now maybe not as pure as it had been.
Right.
We were now getting some backlash from that. As well as, like, hey, maybe the U.S. isn't the greatest country in the world as we've been told our entire lives. Maybe we have fucked up and done some bad things. Maybe we kind of were due for a bit of a reckoning or whatever. And I think that that's where some of this kind of nihilism is coming from.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of an important part to remember and think about, like.
Yeah. Well, plus at its core, like, looking at it, I think Peter Parker stayed pure. I think they did a good job, and that's why I really do like the Ultimate Comics Spider-Man run. But everything else, it seemed like, what if everyone was an anti-hero?
Yeah. I feel like at that point too, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I also kind of feel like 2009-ish, late 2000s, early 2010s was where we really started to see the rise of stuff like, the Punisher and that kind of thing is kind of being like the cool guys, because they had an ambiguous moral code or,
It started in the 90s.
Like late 90s for sure. And I think it just kind of kept escalating, dipped for a little while during the, 9/11, the post 9/11 years, and then kind of came back into, popularity with a vengeance after that. It's like, we don't want our Captain Americas anymore. They're boring. They're one-dimensional. We want our,
Right, because Garth Ennis started the Punisher back up with the Max line in 2000, April of 2000. So yeah, you're right, because the Punisher kind of had a heyday in the late 80s, early 90s with some of the Punisher War Journal stuff, and starting to get into that. But then mid 90s, it was on the decline. Actually, the mid 90s, amusingly enough, is when Deadpool started to kind of take over that space.
Yeah.
And then, Deadpool's gigantic in the 2000s.
Right.
Well, and I guess a couple more things. Well, I think the violence in this, like, I think it betrays the nihilism. I think it betrays even any absurdism a little bit, because if everyone's an anti-hero, like, I think the thing that people don't, or the thing that I use too much, is that all of these are choices, right? Like, there is an author behind all of this. The way the women are drawn is a choice. Valkyrie needing to be nearly nude, like, that is a choice. The fact that there are, 15 heads that explode, like, that's a choice. And if you keep doing it, it loses its value. And then connected, okay, so there's this thought experiment. What if everyone was an anti-hero? Well, if everyone's an anti-hero, Magneto doesn't become interesting anymore. Because Magneto has always been someone who philosophically needs to be taken seriously. But when you blow him up to a comic book character, you can engage with that philosophy, and you can also then, like, make him a bad guy, right? Like, he has to be a terrorist in order to go up against the good guys, because he kind of has a point. And whether violence is the answer or not, I want to engage with those who have been hurt. Why do they think violence is the answer? And is a dicey place to play at that, because everyone gets punched and sent to jail, and that's how we end our stories.
Yeah.
But it's not impressive to me that Magneto is trying to flood the entire Earth when Doctor Doom is assassinating children, when 6 people get vaporized, good guys, and like, there's no... right, the cliche of the bad guys killed the dog.
Yeah.
That's the word. When the good guys are using the same methods as the bad guys, I don't have to engage with the bad guys' philosophy anymore.
Right.
I don't have to say, look at America is the greatest nation, and if we punch Hitler in the face, we'll win the day. And we stop paying attention to who we're punching and who gets to punch, and you end up at 9/11. Not that the terrorists of 9/11 are responsible for their actions, but they lived in a world that the U.S. created militarily, right? The military-industrial complex is responsible for everybody who has an AK-47 or an M16. That was an American war, from dropping atomic bomb to the present. But if everyone's vaporizing each other, if everyone's decapitating each other, if the Hulk, who's sure he's always been an anti-hero, is a cannibal, if the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are sleeping together, and they go out of their way to make them siblings, they go out of the way to make them the children of Magneto, I don't care what Magneto has to say anymore, because none of it matters.
Yeah.
And if none of it matters, there's no morality at the end of the day. Even if the morality is, we were wrong the whole time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this was just kind of shock and edge for shock and edge's sake.
Yeah. Yeah, no one in 2000 turned the calendar over and went, well, we're done with 90s extremism. Like, that doesn't, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am always impressed that you all pull out of this. Well, it does reflect the time and the place. There are lessons here. I think that is reader response and not authorial intent.
Well, and halfway through this, because we're getting into an awesome subject, but halfway through this, I also wanted to bring up that this was the first time I realized that Ben Grimm is a Jewish character who's a golem.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's not, Stan Lee didn't do that. This is what I love about comic books. People see things and take things and push things to be something more than they ever were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Weapon X is, someone said that sounded cool, and then I'm going to forget who now, but Ellis or Moore, one of those guys, said, well, what if that was a number? And ties him back to Captain America. Like that, those kind of things where people just go, what if I tweak it a little bit?
Yeah, which I love. That's something I really enjoy.
Yeah. This is the reason people think comic books are immature and violent and
It definitely didn't help the case. No.
Yeah, this is seduction of the innocent.
Yeah. But all in all, how did we do, Jesse?
I am viscerally upset with the wasting of potential to tell a story about story, to bring new characters over, or to give a definitive end to a story that has been going on for 50 years. I'm visibly upset by that, which I think means that Leia had been presented to me what it was I signed up to be told.
Yeah.
I am as mad as you are, and I didn't see any of the pictures. So, well done.
Okay.
This is one of the situations in which the pictures do not help.
No.
Like a lot of times we say you must see the art to really get certain things. Like we just recorded Tom King's wedding issue of Batman and Catwoman.
Okay.
Brilliant art and some stuff that we just couldn't explain because the art does it so well. This is not that. This is not Human Target. This is not some of the more pretty books that we've done. This was a shit show.
Yeah. This could only have been better if it were illustrated by the guy that did Dawn. Oh, I broke Josh.
Oh my God! Just how much you hate just Michael Lindster is amusing to me.
Josh, I did appreciate that cisgender white male who grew up about the same time you did. Watching you in real time, like both defend your childhood and also watching adult you look back at it and go, this is
no, it was a real life lesson in shame. Yeah. It was real time, just shame. Just the lady was behind me with the bell. I don't know what to tell you.
Brooke, we all grow up, and when you know better, you do better. Like, so I haven't taken things out of, we haven't run them through with our modern eyes again. And we think they were fine because I'm a good person and I like this thing. Therefore, this thing must have aged well. And
yeah,
and they don't always.
Yeah.
Comics are media. They are not a genre.
Yeah. Well, this has been the penultimate episode of season 5. Tune in for our finale next week when we will be doing Gotham City Sirens, which is a book I'm very, very excited to do. Not just because I really enjoy it. It was the first kind of time that they put Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Harley Quinn together. Just really interesting comic especially for the trajectory of what Harley Quinn would become. And kind of, in my eyes, her redemption, speaking of things that people enjoy and then, sometimes they get better, sometimes they don't. But also because we will have Dixie on, and Dixie's amazing. But until then, take it away, Vandello.
Little wreck conversation, some deep reactions, please. All this comics narration ain't letting me. A little more talk, a lot less read. A little fight, baby, is what I need. Close the trade, open up your brains. Explain it to me. Explain it to me, baby. Explain it to me. Explain it to me, baby. Explain it to me. Vandello 2021.